2008 felt like a collapse because it looked like one. Banks failed, markets froze, everyone panicked at once. But most collapses don't work that way. They don't announce themselves, they drift. Japan didn't collapse in 1990. It just stopped growing for 35 years. Greece didn't collapse in 2010, it just lost sovereignty, quietly. 2026 is that kind of year. Nothing is breaking, that's what makes it dangerous. This year is not about what breaks. It's about what gets normalized. Systems don't announce when they are being tested. They don't sound alarms, they don't pause operations. They continue, quietly adjusting, quietly delaying, quietly measuring how much pressure can be absorbed without forcing a response. The system does not fail the way people expect it to. There is no sound that announces the test, no moment where alarms synchronize and everyone looks up at once. What happens instead is quieter. The system keeps working, it just begins asking different questions. 2026 is not a year of collapse, it is a year of calibration. A year where pressure is applied carefully, not to break things, but to see how much strain they can absorb without anyone noticing. That difference matters, because systems rarely reveal their limits under stress. They reveal them under normal conditions. For years, stability was treated as proof of strength. If nothing broke, it meant nothing was wrong. If markets cleared, if logistics flowed, if institutions remained functional, the assumption was that the system was healthy. But stability can also mean something else. It can mean that the system has learned how to delay consequences. That is what gets tested in 2026. Not whether the system can survive a shock, but whether it can keep functioning while signals are muted, feedback is softened, and decisions are postponed. The test is not about resilience, it is about tolerance. When systems are young, they correct quickly, errors surface fast, mistakes are visible, but mature systems behave differently. They accumulate friction instead of resolving it. They spread cost across time instead of absorbing it all at once. This is where 2026 begins, not with a break, but with a drift. Small delays that feel reasonable, minor adjustments that seem temporary, policies framed as bridges rather than endpoints, each one harmless on its own. Collectively, they create a system that looks stable while becoming less responsive. What does this mean for you? Your savings sit in a bank that looks safe, until suddenly it's not. Your job exists at a company that looks stable, until the quiet risks compound. Your investments grow in markets that look normal, until everyone tries to exit at once. The system's test is your test. Because when responsiveness fails, individuals absorb the cost. Responsiveness is the real variable under test. Not speed, not scale, not efficiency. Responsiveness. The ability of the system to notice when conditions change and adapt before pressure becomes structural. In 2026, that ability is quietly evaluated. The signals are not missing. They are present but softened. They arrive later. When warnings lose their edge, behavior changes. Actors wait longer. Decisions narrow. Optionality disappears slowly, without resistance. This is not negligence. It is adaptation. When systems reward caution over action, restraint feels intelligent. Waiting becomes rational. The cost of moving too early appears higher than the cost of moving too late. That trade-off shapes behavior across the system. In previous cycles, testing happened through visible stress. Liquidity vanished. Confidence cracked in public. Quiet testing does the opposite. It avoids triggering safeguards. It allows the system to operate in a gray zone where nothing is wrong enough to justify decisive action. That is the condition 2026 explores. Look around right now. Interest rates stayed high longer than expected, but nothing broke. Commercial real estate values dropped, but no crisis emerged. Regional banks wobbled, then stabilized. Each time, the system absorbed it. Each time, everyone said, "See, it's fine." But absorption is not the same as resolution. It's postponement, and postponement has a limit. The system is not asking, "Can we survive a crisis?" It is asking, "How long can we function without clarity? How long can accountability be deferred without breaking trust?" This matters because modern systems are optimized for continuity, not correction. They are designed to keep processes running, not to stop and reassess. Pauses are costly, resets are disruptive. So the system prefers adjustments that preserve motion, even if direction becomes uncertain. In 2026, continuity is maintained. Nothing stops, everything continues, but continuation itself becomes the test. The question is whether alignment holds between signals and responses, between responsibility and authority. When those drift apart, systems do not collapse immediately. They lose coherence first. Loss of coherence is subtle. It looks like confusion, but it is not. It looks like hesitation, but it is strategic. Actors sense that the rules still apply, but outcomes feel less predictable. When predictability declines, behavior shifts towards self-protection. That shift is not dramatic. It looks like risk aversion framed as prudence. Commitments shorten. Horizons narrow. Decisions are made with exit in mind, not outcome. The system absorbs this behavior at first. It has buffers. It has redundancy. Those features are strengths in a crisis. In a quiet test, they become masks. Buffers delay feedback. Redundancy hides inefficiency. The system appears stable because its warning lights are disconnected from its core stress points. That is not failure, it is design. The test of 2026 is whether that design still works when uncertainty is not resolved, only extended. There is a threshold where delay stops being neutral, where postponement itself creates risk. That threshold is difficult to see because it does not announce itself. It emerges quietly as options close. In 2026, exits do not disappear suddenly. They narrow. They require more coordination. When exits become timing dependent, the system becomes fragile without appearing so. Everyone assumes they can move later. That assumption holds until it does not. The test is whether the system recognizes that moment before it passes. Recognition depends on signals. In 2026, those incentives favor calm. Calm is valuable. Calm maintains confidence. But calm also suppresses urgency. When urgency is suppressed for too long, adaptation slows. This is the quiet danger of the year, not collapse, but complacency reinforced by functioning systems. Not failure, but endurance without learning. The system is being tested on its ability to self-correct without external shock. To adjust while everything appears fine. That is a harder test than survival. Survival tests strength. Quiet tests discipline. Discipline requires acknowledging limits before they are reached. It requires acting when action still feels optional. In 2026, optionality still exists. That is why the test is quiet. The system is allowed to choose whether to adapt or to wait. Waiting feels safer. Waiting preserves appearances. But waiting also compounds dependency on favorable conditions. It assumes that delays do not change the underlying structure. Structures do change. They change slowly, then all at once. The system does not notice the slow part because it looks like normal operation. By the time change becomes visible, the test is already over. The result is known. Not because something breaks, but because options have narrowed beyond recovery. That is why 2026 matters. Not as a turning point, but as an evaluation period. There will be no single moment to point to. No date that explains everything. Only a sequence of reasonable decisions that together define the result. The system is being tested on whether it can hear soft signals, whether it can accept friction early to avoid rigidity later, whether it can distinguish between stability and stagnation. The danger is not that the system fails the test. The danger is that it passes by learning how to operate under muted feedback. Because a system that adapts to silence does not regain sensitivity easily. When sensitivity is lost, future tests become harsher. They require louder signals, stronger pressure, more abrupt correction. 2026 determines which path is taken, not through drama, through discipline. Nothing ends this year, nothing resolves cleanly. What happens instead is quieter. The system reveals how it behaves when no one is forcing its hand. That behavior is the real result of the test. So, what should you watch? Not headlines, not market highs or lows. Watch how long decisions take. Watch how often the word temporary is used. Watch when uncertainty stops being acknowledged. Because the system's test is simple. Can it still respond when nothing forces it to? 2026 will answer that question. Not with a bang, with silence.